What's up, guys? Tommy Mutchler here, your favorite Bellingham, Washington realtor. And today, I'm going to tell you exactly everything you need to know on how to buy a house here in 2022. Now, just real quick, this is not going to be one of those videos talking about whether or not you can buy a house or whether or not you should buy a house or talking about if the timing is right to buy a house. I'm not your dad. I'm not going to tell you whether or not you can buy a house. Realistically, if you want to buy a house and you don't have cash and you're not really sure if you qualify or not, you just have to talk to a mortgage lender. What this video is going to be talking about is the steps you need to go through to buy a house successfully in today's market. Because if you've been paying attention at all, you know this market is extremely hot right now and it's a little bit hard to buy a house. So in this video, we're going to be talking about everything you need to know, break it down as simply as possible, and all the steps you need to take to buy a house easily. But real quick, before we get started, I just want to let you know I am a realtor in the Bellingham, Northwest Washington area. So if you're thinking about hiring a realtor and you're thinking about moving here, please feel free to reach out and hire me. I also have some links down below if you need a referral for a realtor in a different state. I'm more than happy to connect you with another realtor. Otherwise, please feel free to reach out. I'm always happy to help. All right, first step. Hire a realtor. Now, of course, like I said, you could, of course, hire me, yours truly. But the reality is you just need to hire a realtor. There's no reason not to. They're a free service to you, usually paid for by the sellers. Plus, this is one of the largest, if not the largest purchase you have ever made in your entire life. We're talking about spending $500,000, almost up to $1 million. Plus, you have to navigate the complexity of contracts, contingencies, inspections, appraisals, escrows, potentially lawyers. There's a lot going on, not to mention the negotiation factor. You really do need someone to help you buy a house. And no, if you call the listing agent of the house that you want to buy, I promise you're not going to get a better deal. That listing agent is loyal to their seller. They have a fiduciary responsibility to take care of their seller and make sure they get them the best deal possible, not you. So do yourself a favor. First step is hire a realtor. Now, I recommend interviewing a few. I would probably interview 2 or 3 and just find someone you trust. Now, as much as I feel for the brand new realtors, you don't want to hire someone that just got their license. I would say hire someone that's had their license for at least 3 or 4 years and has sold probably at least 100 houses. However, on the flip side, if you hear a realtor talking about selling 100, 200, 300 houses a year, 1, they're probably lying to you. No one sells that many houses a year. And 2, if a realtor is selling 100 houses a year, they're probably going to be too busy to give you the help you need. So again, my advice is interview 2 or 3 realtors, find one you like and trust, make sure they have some experience. But if they're talking about selling 1 million houses a year, they're probably not going to have the day of time for you. You're just another number to them. You want to make sure you find someone who's really going to have your best interest at heart. And now, while you might not think you need a realtor now, if you do plan on buying within the next year or 6 months, you should probably start interviewing now. A good realtor is going to sit down with you and help you come up with a realistic game plan for getting you your dream home. Plus, they'll be able to educate you on current market conditions for your local area for the specific type of house that you want to buy. Because what you hear on the news on a national level probably isn't true in a local market. So it's really good to have a local realtor that understands their market better than anyone to help guide you and educating you. Step number 2 is get pre-approved from a local lender. Now, if you get one of these online approvals, I'm going to tell you right now, those don't mean anything. What you need to do is, after you hire a realtor, ask them who their preferred lender is or preferred lenders. Some realtors only have 1 lender they work with. I personally have 3 lenders that I work with. And I usually recommend that you talk to 2 or 3 of them. Now, these should be good local lenders that not only your realtor trusts, but all realtors around you will trust. This is important because if you hire a big box lender, we'll call them big box or big box bank lenders, right? These are mortgage lenders, people giving out loans. A lot of realtors don't really trust them because they usually have a history of not closing on time or making the process more difficult. Not only that, there's really no benefit to ever using them. Their customer service isn't always there. I don't want to trash talk anyone. I just want to be honest with you guys. I personally prefer smaller local lenders. You get much better customer service. You get a much better deal. And you're much more likely to get your offer accepted. Now, the reason you want to get pre-approved right away is to see where you're at. You might not get qualified the second you go apply for a loan. You might have to fix your credit. You might have to fix some things with your employer. You might have to work at your job for a couple more months. There's a whole slur of factors that go into getting pre-approved for a loan. And it's not something you want to do the second you find your dream home. Because what often happens is people will find their dream home. They want to put in an offer, but they need to get pre-approved. And then they find out they can't get pre-approved. They got to wait another month. They got to pay off this credit card, they gotta do this, they gotta do that. So it's really important to get pre-approved right away. Now, when it comes to what type of loan you should get, that's not for me to say. Honestly, your local lender should be able to give you the best advice when it comes to what type of loan works best for you. You have your USDA loans, your conventional loans, your FHA loans, your VA loans, and I know a lot of these things probably don't mean anything to you, and they probably shouldn't. I don't want you overthinking them or worrying about them. Honestly, a good local lender that you trust will be able to tell you which option is best for you in your very unique situation, because honestly, all these loans are really, really good. It just depends on your very unique situation. All right, step number 3 for buying a house is figuring out what you want. Now that you've talked with a realtor and now that you're pre-approved for a loan, it's time to figure out what it is you actually want in a house. Now, by now, you've probably been looking at houses on Zillow and Redfin and looking all around, and that's great. That's awesome. But now that you're pre-approved for a loan, it's time to see what is realistic within your budget. I highly recommend making a list of must-haves and preferences. Your must-haves for buying a house are very unique to you and what you feel you need. If you have a large family, you might need 4 or 5 bedrooms. If you want to be in a location with a really good school, then you might want to consider location as a priority. If you must have an open concept kitchen because that's just what you want, then okay, make that a must-have. But no, you're going to have to make sacrifices in other areas. If you want to have an open concept kitchen and a good school location and your price is only X amount of dollars, you might have to compromise on other preferences like vaulted ceilings, big backyard, fireplace. You might have to compromise on some of these things. So I really recommend make your list of everything you want, but then make your preference list. I would like to have these things, but I don't have to have them. They're not deal breakers. And then you have your must-haves. I cannot buy a house unless I have this. This is a non-negotiable. There's no way I'm buying a house. It would be better to stay in my current situation than to not get this. And I would recommend keeping it to only 2 or 3, or even 1 or none. I know some people are not picky at all when it comes to buying a house. They just want to buy a house, and that's great. More power to you. Just know the more must-haves you have on your list, the more expensive and harder it is to find, and you may end up paying a lot more than you probably initially wanted to. I'm going to tell you right now, the perfect house does not exist. Unless you have unlimited money, of course, and you can go build whatever it is you want to build. However, that said, don't get too discouraged. We can usually get you 90% of everything that you want in a house. You just might not get everything that you want. So we will get you really close. Just know it's just not going to be perfect and check every single box, okay? All right, step 4, it's time to tour properties. By now, you've been pre-approved for a loan, you've hired a realtor, you figured out what it is you want to look for. It's time to start touring houses. Now, you've probably been told you need to go tour 500 houses before you make an offer. And I'm going to tell you right now, that's not realistic at all. You'll probably look at 2 or 3, maybe a maximum of 5 houses before you make an offer on a house. And the reason for this, if you've done steps 1, 2, and 3 properly, you should already know what you want. And you should be looking at houses online all the time. You should be looking at hundreds of houses online, right? Go for it. Look at 100 houses on Zillow or on your realtor's website, whatever it is. Go ahead and look at 1,000,000 houses. But when it comes to touring houses in person, you're probably only going to look at a few before you end up making an offer. In fact, I would say if you don't find what you're looking for within 5 houses, you probably need to go back to the drawing board and reevaluate what it is you're looking for in a house. And the reason I say that is because statistically speaking, as someone who's worked with thousands of clients over the last 7 years, people usually buy within looking at 2 to 3 houses. However, if someone looks at more than 5 houses, they almost never buy, especially if they get to 10. If they get to 10 houses and they never make an offer on a house, they're probably never going to make an offer on a house. And that's fine. Home ownership is not for everyone. Now, on the flip side, don't be afraid to buy the very first house you see. Probably about 8 to 10 times a year, I will show a house to a buyer I just met and they'll buy the very first one they look at. And there's nothing wrong with that because by that time, they've already looked at hundreds of houses online. They know exactly what they want and they found the perfect one. And I followed up with these home buyers years after buying just that one house they looked at, and they're still really happy with that decision they made. So don't feel like you need to go look at 10 houses when you've looked at one and you feel like it's the one. I'm going to tell you right now, if all your other ducks in a row, you're pre-approved and you're comfortable with buying and you feel like this house is the right one, just go for it. Trust your gut. Now, what about buying a house sight unseen? In the age of COVID, where it's a little bit harder to show a house sometimes, and we have virtual tours everywhere and video tours and 3D tours, and people moving out of states and from different states or living out of areas or not being available because they're sick, a lot of people are buying houses sight unseen. In fact, 3 weeks ago, I just bought a house that I never even looked at. But because I've been looking for the last year, I knew exactly what I want and it met all my preferences. I felt good enough to make an offer right away without ever looking at it. In fact, it wasn't until a week later that I did the home inspection that I actually got to look at it and felt even more confident with my decision. Now, obviously, I recommend always looking at a house, and I don't recommend buying a house sight unseen, but sometimes it's not possible to look at houses in person all the time. I work with a lot of clients who are moving here from California or Texas or Arizona, and they can't get on a plane at the drop of a hat to come look at houses. They can, oftentimes they do, but not always. In fact, I just sold a house about a month ago where the clients bought the house and they never even looked at it, and they absolutely love it. So again, while it is better that you do look at the house whenever possible, if it's your only option, don't be afraid to buy sight unseen. All right, now we're at step 5, which is making an offer on a house. Now, I'm going to be completely blunt here, and I'm going to tell you that every single house, every single offer, every single situation is different. And this is where it's really important to have a really good, strong realtor who has a ton of experience, to be able to guide you and talk you through what you need to do when it comes to making an offer. There are several different contingencies, negotiation strategies, and variables that go in depending on what the market's doing, whether there's going to be multiple offers on the situation, or whether or not the house has been sitting on the market for months. There's a lot of factors involved. For example, if the house has been sitting on the market for, I don't say more than 2 weeks, let's say months. It's been sitting on the market for months. It's reasonable to assume that you can make an offer that's a lot more in your favor, where maybe you get a lower price, you can do a longer home inspection, you can maybe ask for some credits. But if the house was just listed 2 days ago and you fell in love with it and you want to make an offer on it, there's probably going to be other buyers making offers as well. And even if there's not, you might not be able to ask for price reductions. And if anything, you might be paying a little bit more, possibly even waiving a home inspection, which I don't recommend doing. However, sometimes you have to do that. And every house and every market is different. It's not only price that sometimes you have to offer more of. So you don't always have to offer more money. Sometimes you might have to do things like meet a particular close date that works with the seller's timeline, or offer more earnest money, or make a larger down payment, or waive your appraisal contingency, or God forbid, waive your inspection contingency. There's a lot of different factors that go into making an offer on a house, and it really depends on your unique situation. Now, I want to give you some advice right now. So listen very closely. Just because you're paying over asking price does not mean you're overpaying on a house. You understand me? A house could be worth $550,000, but listed at $500,000. And say they get a couple offers for $500,000, $510,000, and maybe you're willing to pay up to $525,000, knowing full well that yes, you're paying over asking price. However, you're still paying under market value. And I tell you this because oftentimes a lot of realtors, especially right now, are listing houses just slightly below market value to try and get more offers to try and sell it for more money. And the inverse is true. Just because a house has been on the market for 3 months and it's priced at, let's say, $500,000 doesn't mean it's worth that. Maybe it's worth $450,000, right? And you got a $25,000 price reduction to $475,000. You still ended up overpaying even though you got a discount on the house, right? So it's really important that when you make an offer on a house, your realtor does a market analysis on that property to determine its true value. So again, just because you're paying over asking does not mean you're overpaying. Now, before we move on to step 6, here's a really quick pro tip. Now, if you do find yourself in a situation where you have to waive your inspection, I would highly recommend you buy a home warranty. They're usually between $400 and $500, and they'll cover most major system malfunctions. So if something were to break, a roof was to leak, you were to have an electrical problem, a plumbing problem, a home warranty will cover most of these repairs, or cover most of the costs of these repairs. It's honestly just a really great way to protect yourself in case something were to go wrong. Even if you get a home inspection, they're really good things to just buy and have. I don't get any kickbacks or affiliates. I'm not related to these in any way. I'm just telling you, it's a really good thing to purchase, especially if you can't do a home inspection. All right, here we are. Step number 6, the seller has accepted your offer. Congratulations, you big crazy. You are now officially pending, and it's time to go into escrow. Now, if you don't know what those words mean, don't worry about it. Don't stress at all. Your realtor will guide you and walk you through every single step of the transaction. Basically, the pending or escrow process basically just means it's the timeline between having your offer accepted and the time to close. Usually takes 30 to 45 days, although it can be faster if you're paying with all cash. During this time is when you usually do your home inspection, you'll have an appraisal done, you'll review any HOA documents, maybe do a title review, do some paperwork for the escrow company. It's really a straightforward straightforward and pretty simple process, mostly because your lender and your realtor are taking care of everything for you. You might have some additional negotiations you might have to do, like negotiate some minor details with the sellers. Again, your realtor is going to help you through that. It's honestly a pretty easy, straightforward process, and you just need to have faith and trust that all this stuff will be taken care of for you, assuming you hire a realtor. Hire a realtor. Hire me. Please hire me. Just kidding. You don't have to hire me. Now, just because it's an easy process, there are some things you can do to really screw it up, so don't screw it up, okay? One of the worst things you could possibly do when you're pending or in escrow is buy something. Do not buy or finance anything. Don't even touch your credit card. Well, you could probably touch your credit cards, but don't open any new credit cards. Don't go buy a new refrigerator. Don't go buy a new couch. Actually, no, don't use your credit card. What am I saying? Don't do anything. Don't spend any money that you don't have to spend. Don't buy a new car. Don't go on a vacation. In fact, don't even leave. Don't even leave the area. I understand that sometimes maybe if you do have to leave and if you are going to be out of town, okay, fine, but you need to tell your realtor and the escrow company weeks in advance so we can prepare properly. This has never happened to me, but it happened to a good friend of mine where their client bought a truck 2 weeks before closing on the house and they financed it, and the lender said, "Oh, you can't afford a mortgage anymore. You just bought a $50,000 truck. Bye-bye house." I've heard stories of it happening with just buying a refrigerator or a couch or a dishwasher. Again, same thing. Oh, you have a new loan? Okay, that means, sorry, you can't buy a house anymore. Now, that said, there are exceptions to this rule. If you're going to buy something or you really need to buy something, you have to talk to your lender first and see what they say. But more often times than not, they're going to tell you just wait. Close on the house, then you can buy these things, okay? All right, now we're about to close on the house and it's time to do your final walkthrough. Final walkthrough is just, you go through the house really quickly, you make sure everything is how it's supposed to be, you make sure the refrigerator is still there, that the seller didn't take it, you make sure they didn't take out any light bulbs or anything like that. They usually don't, but if they did, you better get it back. Basically, you just want to go through and just walk through the house and make sure everything is exactly how it was when you made your offer. If everything looks good, you'll go ahead and sign the closing papers. The escrow company will record it at the county for you. And assuming the house doesn't burn down, congratulations, you're a brand new homeowner. All right, guys, thank you so much for watching. Remember, if you're thinking about buying a house in the Northwest Washington area, go ahead and click that link down below and hire me. I would love to help you out. Again, if you need a referral for a realtor in a different area, there's also a link for that in the description as well. Also, if you have any more questions about the home buying process, please go ahead and leave a comment. I will do my best to answer every single one of them, and I'll see you in the next one.